There's a kind of death that doesn't come with a funeral. No casket, no grieving, no final breath. Just a slow, invisible rot. The death of potential. And it begins with silence. Not the kind that brings peace. Not the kind that lets you rest. But a colder silence. A dangerous one. The silence of waiting. You know that silence. You felt it. It's the stillness just after you say, "I'll start tomorrow. I just need more time. I'm not ready yet." It creeps in like fog. Subtle, quiet, harmless at first, but it wraps itself around you until your limbs forget how to move, until your voice forgets how to scream, until your ambition forgets how to breathe. That silence is a killer. Not loud, not violent, just patient. And most people, they don't even notice when they've already begun to decay. Because here's the brutal truth most people avoid like the plague. Most people die waiting. Waiting for a break. Waiting for a handout. Waiting for motivation. Waiting for the fear to pass. The pain to fade. The skies to clear. But no one's coming. No one's coming to tell you you're good enough. No one's coming to show you the way. No one's coming to drag you from the hole you're in. And the world, it doesn't care how long you sit there. Time will keep moving. The clock will keep ticking. And the silence will keep growing until it becomes your prison. This is the truth no one wants to face. The longer you wait, the weaker you become. You lose your edge. You lose your hunger. You lose the very parts of yourself that could have built something powerful, something real. You weren't meant to rot in comfort. You weren't built to exist in a waiting room for life. And yet so many choose exactly that. Because silence feels safer than risk. Waiting feels easier than failing. But ask yourself, what's really more dangerous? Failing while moving? Or dying while sitting still? You see, the silence you feel in your soul, that ache in your chest, that restlessness in your spirit, it's not anxiety. It's not depression. It's not fear. It's your purpose, suffocating. It's your potential, screaming from the inside out. But you've trained yourself to ignore it. You've built rituals around your hesitation. You scroll to avoid. You snack to escape. You joke about your dreams so no one expects you to chase them. You've become so good at waiting. You've forgotten what it means to move. So let me rip the curtain down and say it plain. There is no cavalry. No one is riding in to pull you out. No mentor, no boss, no relationship, no lucky break is going to do it for you. No savior, no rescue, no permission. And if that makes your stomach turn, good. Because that's the beginning of awakening. That's where the real ones are born. Not in praise, not in support, but in confrontation with the raw, merciless silence of truth. That silence is not your enemy. It's your test. Can you sit in it and rise anyway? Can you look around, see no path, no guide, no applause, and still take a step? Because when you do, something shifts. You stop being a product of your circumstances and become the architect of your reality. You stop being a pawn in someone else's game and become the one who writes the rules. And the silence? It doesn't go away, but it changes. It becomes respect. Because the silence recognizes when someone is no longer afraid of it. So the next time you feel that heaviness, the weight of waiting, don't run from it. Stare it down. Let it gnaw at your spine. Let it mock you, taunt you, tempt you, and then rise anyway. Rise, not because anyone told you to, not because it's easy, but because you're tired of dying in pieces. You were not born to wither in the shadows of your own excuses. You were not forged to beg for your worth. You are the fire. You are the edge. You are the reckoning silence never saw coming. So stop waiting. Because the moment you stop asking life for permission, the moment you stop begging the universe to notice you, is the moment you strike first. There comes a moment when silence must be shattered, when the weight of waiting becomes unbearable, when the lies we've whispered to ourselves lose their grip. That moment is when initiative is born. Initiative is the first strike. And make no mistake, this world is not neutral. It will not hold your spot. It will not pause until you're ready. It will chew through your days like rust through steel until your dreams collapse under the weight of hesitation. Most people wait until they're forced to move. By pain, by fear, by loss. But the ones who rise, the dangerous ones, they move first. They don't wait for certainty. They don't wait to be perfect. They strike with what they have, from where they are, even if their hands are trembling, because they understand something the average mind never will. Hesitation is a luxury the hungry can't afford. In war, the first strike sets the tone. It shatters morale. It defines momentum. And life is no different. If you don't hit first, life hits you. If you don't take ground, it's taken from you. If you don't choose your path, one will be chosen for you, and it won't be one of glory. You want to know why so many people are tired? Why their eyes are dull, their posture slumped, their lives gray and empty? Because they've been reacting their whole damn life. Reacting to bills, reacting to stress, reacting to rejection, reacting to circumstances they never created, but now feel trapped in. That's what life becomes when you surrender the sword of initiative. A game you no longer control. A prison with invisible bars. But here's the secret the world won't tell you. The power to flip the script has always been yours. And it begins with a single move. One decision. One bold, unreasonable, defiant act of will. That's what initiative really is. Not just motion, but defiance. Defiance of comfort. Defiance of doubt. Defiance of every voice, inside or out, that told you to wait your turn. Strike first. Not with recklessness, but with conviction. The kind of conviction that says, I'd rather bleed on my own terms than drown in someone else's silence. Because waiting robs you of power. Reacting makes you a puppet. But initiative makes you dangerous. Suddenly, you're not just drifting. You're building. You're not just responding. You're dictating. You become a force, a storm, a sovereign will unleashed. And you won't always know the outcome. You won't always win the first time. But let me be clear. It's better to fail while fighting forward than to succeed at staying still. Because every time you strike with intention, every time you push instead of pause, you sharpen your edge. You awaken the part of yourself that was put here to conquer, not comply. But there's a cost. There's always a cost. You'll lose people who don't understand your urgency. You'll offend the ones still waiting for a sign. You'll outgrow the environments built for comfort and excuses. Good. Let them fall away. Because the path of initiative isn't crowded. It's carved in blood and grit by those who refuse to be shaped by fear. So ask yourself, when was the last time you did something that wasn't safe? Something that wasn't approved, applauded, or expected? When was the last time you struck first? If your answer is, I don't remember, then you already know what comes next. Because behind every unmade move, there's a rotting excuse. A lie you've rehearsed until you believed it. And that's where we go next. into the graveyard of dreams, where excuses live, where futures are buried, where warriors either confront the truth or disappear. There's a place far more terrifying than failure, more haunted than rock bottom, more crowded than the battlefield of life. It's the graveyard of dreams, and every tombstone bears a name, not of the dead, but of the living, those who buried their potential while their hearts still beat. And do you know what lies beneath each grave? Not misfortune, not bad timing, not lack of opportunity. Excuses. Excuses are the lies we tell to protect our pride. They're the mask that shields us from accountability. They sound like logic. They feel like safety. But they're poison, slow and sweet. The kind you sip daily until your soul goes numb. Excuses are the lullabies that rock your ambition to sleep. I didn't have time. I wasn't ready. I didn't want to fail. It wasn't the right moment. No. What you mean is, I was scared. I was lazy. I cared more about being comfortable than being great. And I get it. We've all done it. We've all rationalized why we didn't move, why we didn't speak, why we didn't start. But here's the thing. No one climbs out of that grave by justifying the dirt they lie in. No one rewrites their story while clinging to the excuses that killed it. Excuses aren't just reasons. They're shackles. They wrap around your wrists and whisper, "It's not your fault. It's out of your hands. You did your best." But those are the words of a prisoner, not a warrior. Excuses breed mediocrity, and mediocrity is a disease. It spreads in silence, it grows in comfort, and it kills quietly. Because unlike failure, mediocrity doesn't wake you up. It lets you exist, not live, just exist. Every time you say, "I can't," you rob the world of what you could have been. Every time you say, "Later," you hand your power to the future that never comes. So here's your wake-up call. If your life is filled with excuses, it's not bad luck. It's bad leadership. You've surrendered your throne. You've let fear take the crown. You've become a servant to your own weakness. And no amount of blaming, complaining, or justifying will save you. Only one thing will: radical, ruthless responsibility. That's the only cure. You have to rip the excuses out by the root. You have to look in the mirror and say, "I was the problem, and I will be the solution." No alibis, no distractions, no damn sympathy. You've lied to yourself long enough. Now it's time to confront the cost. Because excuses don't just stall your progress. They become your identity. And that's the tragedy. The more you repeat the lie, the more you believe it. And eventually, you become it. You become the person who almost did something, who could have been great, but never crossed the line between potential and action. You become the excuse. But it doesn't have to end that way. Because the moment you stop explaining your inaction, the moment you silence the lies, you're left with a terrifying, beautiful question. What now? Now, you act. Now, you move. Now, you decide that your identity will not be built on excuses. Because action is the forge. Movement is the rebirth. And your next step, however small, is the one that changes everything. Because while excuses shape the weak, action shapes the unstoppable. Who are you? Not the name on your birth certificate. Not the image you've built online. Not the version of yourself you present when people are watching. Who are you when no one's around? Who are you when there's no applause, no deadline, no spotlight? The truth. You're not your thoughts. You're not your goals. You're not your dreams, your intentions, your plans, or your potential. You are what you do. That's it. Action is identity, not talent, not talk, not ambition. What you do, consistently, relentlessly, is who you are. You can read every book, speak every affirmation, visualize every outcome, but if your feet never move, if your hands never build, if your blood never boils with action, then your identity is still fiction. It doesn't matter how gifted you are. It doesn't matter how hard you mean to try. The universe doesn't reward your thoughts. It rewards your execution. And that's why so many people are lost. Because they've confused thinking with becoming. They fantasize about who they could be. They mentally rehearse a life they'll never actually live. But there are no trophies for imagination. There is no reward for almost. You don't get to call yourself disciplined unless you act with discipline. You don't get to call yourself resilient until you move through the storm. Every action is a vote for the kind of person you are. And every time you skip that workout, break that promise, delay that goal, you cast a vote for weakness. But every time you show up when you don't want to, every time you move without motivation, every time you grind in silence, you carve your identity into stone. That's how warriors are made. Not in their heads, in the heat of action, in the repetition, in the scars, in the moments when everything screams, stop, and they move anyway. You can lie to others. You can lie to yourself. But your actions never lie. If you want to know who someone is, don't listen to their words. Watch them. Watch what they do when no one is watching. Watch what they do when it's hard, when it's cold, when it's thankless. That's identity, not the brand, not the story, the movement. You say you're a leader, then lead something. You say you're a builder, then build. You say you're a warrior, then suffer and rise without complaint, without fanfare, without needing to be seen. Because the ones who are, they don't need to prove it. They just do. And it bleeds from their presence, their eyes, their discipline, their results. But let me be clear. If your identity is not built in action, it's built on illusion. And illusions always shatter under pressure. So you've got to ask yourself, what actions define me? What do I do daily that confirms who I claim to be? If that question terrifies you, good. It means you're still capable of transformation. It means the foundation is not finished. It means you still have the power to shift the story. But here's the trap you must avoid. Don't wait for permission to become what you already are. Don't beg for validation before taking the step. Don't pause your action because the world hasn't caught up to your vision. You don't need a crown to act like royalty. You don't need applause to be great. You don't need permission to move. And that's exactly where we go next. Because the ones who move without permission, they're the ones the world eventually follows. You were trained to wait. Since birth, you've been taught to ask for permission. Permission to speak. Permission to move. Permission to act. Permission to want something more. You were taught to raise your hand, to stay in line, to sit still, to wait your turn. But here's the reality no one told you. The world doesn't give permission slips to warriors. It gives them to servants, to those who beg, to those who hesitate, to those who live their entire lives asking, am I allowed? But if you're still waiting for the green light, you've already lost. You don't ask a locked door for permission to open it. You break it down. You don't ask the storm to let you pass. You walk into it and bend it to your will. Because greatness doesn't beg. It moves. It builds. claims. That job you want? No permission needed. That version of yourself that keeps you up at night? You don't need a degree, a following, or a blessing to become it. You only need fire. You only need nerve. You only need the willingness to be rejected, laughed at, doubted, and ignored, and to move forward anyway. Most people die waiting for the nod. They wait for their family to approve. They wait for society to validate. They wait for the timing to be right. Let me tell you something about the right time. It doesn't exist. The right time is a myth sold to the weak by those who benefit from your hesitation. The world will never say, "Now is your moment." The people around you will never scream, "Go all in," because your action reminds them of everything they're not doing. So stop waiting to be crowned. Crown yourself. You don't need to be appointed, approved, anointed, or applauded. You act, and the crown appears. It's invisible at first, but every time you move without being asked, it begins to shine. Every time you take territory without permission, it grows heavier with power. And eventually, the world has no choice but to recognize what you've already become. But that can't happen if you're still caught in the cage of needing someone else to let you be great. Do you think those who built empires waited? Do you think those who changed the world were liked first? Accepted first? Approved first? No. They were hated, mocked, ignored, feared, because power always looks like rebellion in its early stages. But make no mistake, there is a quiet rebellion in every person who moves without waiting, who acts without explanation, who steps forward without a safety net, and says, "I am not asking, I am claiming." You don't need a title to lead. You don't need a platform to build. You don't need an invitation to become who you were designed to be. Because the truth is, you are the permission you've been waiting for all along. And yes, when you stop waiting, you will fall. You will fail. You will crash through ceilings that weren't meant to be broken. But that's part of it. That's the cost. And that's what separates those who move from those who mourn. Because the road to power is paved in missteps, and the map to mastery is soaked in failure, which leads us to the next truth. You will fail, but failure is not the end. It's the compass. You're going to fail. That's not a threat. It's a guarantee. One most people spend their lives trying to avoid. And in doing so, they never actually live. Because failure isn't the enemy. It's the truth teller. It's the compass. Failure doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't care how loud your goals are or how pretty your plans look on paper. Failure exists to do one thing: expose what's real. It shows you where you're weak, where your systems break, where your words and actions don't align. And if you have the guts to look it in the eye, failure will show you exactly where to go next. But most people can't handle that kind of honesty. They don't want correction. They want comfort. They don't want direction. They want permission to stay exactly where they are. So they run from failure. They hide behind easy wins. They chase applause instead of progress. But here's the ugly truth. You cannot grow without pain. And you will never know your true power until you're tested by something that knocks you flat and dares you to get back up. Every failure is a fork in the road. Some take it as proof they're not good enough. So they retreat. They shrink. They rewrite their dreams to match their fear. But warriors? They see failure as the signal. A brutal, honest red arrow pointing to the exact place they must evolve. They don't crumble under the weight of it. They build with it. You think the great ones got it right the first time? You think they were born with flawless plans and frictionless paths? No. They failed bigger, harder, louder, and they kept moving. Not because they liked the pain, but because they learned how to use it. Because failure will do one of two things. It will define you or refine you. You either let it break your identity or you let it forge your edge. You either wear it like shame or wield it like a weapon. And here's the secret no one tells you. Every great transformation begins at the bottom. That moment when you've burned through all your excuses, when your ego's been stripped clean, when there's nowhere to go but inward. That's when the real work begins. Not when things are smooth, not when the plan is perfect, but when the mask falls off and you're staring into the mirror, asking yourself, do I have what it takes to keep going? That moment, when everything hurts, when nothing is certain, when the world feels cold and indifferent, that's when you either die inside or awaken. And those who awaken, they become untouchable because they no longer fear failure. They use it. They expect it. They welcome it. They invite it into the process like a sparring partner who keeps them sharp. Because every failure carves away the unnecessary. It chisels off the weakness. It hammers out the lies. Until all that remains is something pure, something unshakable, something real. But here's the key. Only the disciplined can survive the lesson. Because failure isn't just a test of your skill. It's a test of your will. And when your emotions are screaming at you to quit, when your desires are begging you to run, only discipline will carry you through the fire, which is where we go next. Because discipline isn't optional. Not if you want to win. Not if you want to rise. Not if you want to look failure in the face and say, you're not stronger than me. Desire will lie to you. It will whisper promises it never intends to keep. It will seduce you with comfort, distract you with pleasure, and abandon you the moment the path becomes steep. Desire is loud, but it is not loyal. Discipline is quiet, but it never leaves your side. Even when your strength fades, even when your motivation dies, even when the world forgets your name, discipline stays. Most people are slaves to desire. They chase what feels good, what feels right, what feels easy. They build routines around impulse and call it freedom. But they're not free. They're controlled by cravings they don't even understand. They're pulled in every direction by dopamine hits and emotional swings. They start projects they don't finish. They chase goals they never reach. They want the throne, but they won't endure the war. You think you're committed? Wait until desire turns on you. Wait until the high is gone. Wait until your body aches, your mind rebels, and the results haven't come yet. That's where most people stop. They say, it wasn't meant to be. They say, I'm just burnt out. They say, I'll try again when I feel better. But the ones who rise, they don't care how they feel. They obey a higher code. Discipline is the law they answer to. Because discipline doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care about your mood. It doesn't adjust to your feelings. It commands motion. And motion creates transformation. Desire is fleeting. Discipline is eternal. Desire is the spark. Discipline is the furnace. Desire is a fantasy. Discipline is the bridge to reality. Anyone can dream. Anyone can want it. But discipline is what separates those who romanticize the grind from those who bleed for it in silence. You You want the body? Train when it's cold. You want the business? Work when it's thankless. You want the edge? Sacrifice comfort before you ever see results. Because here's the cold truth. Your desires don't matter if your discipline can't carry them. Discipline is waking up when you're tired. It's staying in the fight when your hands shake. It's showing up again and again, without applause, without recognition, without anyone clapping in the shadows. It's going to bed knowing you did what had to be done, regardless of how you felt. And no, it's not glamorous. No one will congratulate you for your daily grind. No one will pat you on the back for what you suffer through in private. But you're not doing this for applause. You're doing it because you know what happens if you don't. You drift. You decay. You lose your edge and collapse into comfort, where potential goes to die. So let others chase motivation. Let others wait until the stars align. You build under the weight of resistance, because you understand something most never will. Discipline is freedom in chains, obedience to a higher standard, loyalty to your future self. And when the world finally notices, when your results can no longer be ignored, they'll call you lucky. They'll call you gifted. They'll say, you came out of nowhere. But you'll know the truth. You didn't come from nowhere. You built in silence. You laid bricks in darkness. You bled where no one could see. Which leads us to the next truth. You must build before you're seen. Because the foundation must be forged in the shadows before the world ever sees the light. The world doesn't notice you when you start. No cameras, no audience, no standing ovation, just silence and a choice. You either build in it or you break under it. Most people won't start unless someone is watching. They want to be seen. They want recognition before results. They want credit before consistency. But here's the reality. You must build in the shadows, or you will never stand in the light. You think greatness begins when people cheer for you. No, it begins in private, in obscurity, in the long, brutal stretch of anonymity where no one claps and no one cares. And that's the part that breaks most people, because they want immediate validation. They want their progress to be visible. They want someone to say, I see you. But when no one's watching, they stop. They skip. They make excuses. And they rot. Because their effort was never real. It was performance. But the ones who are dangerous, the ones who build empires, they grind when it's unseen. They suffer in silence. They construct themselves like temples in the dark, layer by layer, stone by stone. Because they understand this one unshakable law. You earn the light by building in the dark. There are no shortcuts, no secret doors, no instant rewards, only long nights, quiet mornings, and the unrelenting repetition of showing up, even when no one gives a damn. It's the daily disciplines no one sees, the battles you fight, behind closed doors, the choices you make when nobody will ever know the difference. That's where character is formed. That's where power is forged. That's where identity is earned. Because if your foundation is built on applause, you will collapse the moment the noise fades. And it always fades. But if your foundation is built in solitude, on sweat, on patience, on silent suffering, then no storm can shake you. No critic can reach you. No trend can tempt you. And when your day finally comes, when the world finally does see what you've built, they won't understand it. They'll say, overnight success. They'll say, it must be nice. They'll say, you're lucky. But they won't see the early mornings, the cold starts, the meals skipped, the hours sacrificed, the birthdays missed, the days you trained, studied, worked, and bled while they scrolled and slept. And they never will. Because that part wasn't for them. That part was for you. You don't build in the dark to be seen. You build in the dark to become something that deserves to be seen. And when that spotlight finally hits you, you don't flinch. You don't falter. You don't freeze. You rise with calm fire in your eyes. Because you know what you paid to stand there. But there's one more truth you have to face before you can handle that light. Everything is your responsibility. The delay, the detour, the weakness, the win, the loss, the silence, the outcome, all of it, yours. Which leads us to the next truth. Ownership of everything. Because you can't master what you won't claim. It's easy to take credit when things go right. When your plan works. When your effort is praised. When the money comes in. When the people applaud. When the light hits just right. But what about when everything collapses? What about when the results don't match the effort? When the system breaks? When the people you trusted turn cold? When you fall short, not just once, but over and over again? That's where the real question lives. Will you own it? Or will you blame? Because here's the brutal truth. If you don't own it, you can't change it. You can't fix what you won't claim. You can't evolve from what you continue to excuse. And you sure as hell can't lead anyone, not even yourself, if every failure becomes someone else's fault. Ownership is rare because it's heavy. It requires you to look in the mirror and admit, this is mine. All of it. The mistakes, the missed chances, the laziness, the lack of clarity, the hesitation, the lost time. Most people can't do that. They spend their lives pointing fingers at their parents, at the government, at their boss, at their past, at anything they can reach, just to avoid the sting of responsibility. But the sting is the cure. Because once you claim the whole mess, you claim the power to clean it up. You don't control everything that happens, but you do control your response, your choices, your rituals, your words, your direction. Everything that follows your awareness is your responsibility. Yes, the world is brutal. Yes, people will betray you. Yes, you'll face things you never deserved. But that pain, that injustice, that chaos, what you do with it becomes your legacy. Victims wait. Leaders move. Victims deflect. Leaders reflect. Victims give their power away. Leaders reclaim it, one brutal decision at a time. And ownership, it doesn't just mean owning your wins and your losses. It means owning the standard you live by. If your habits are weak, it's on you. If your relationships are shallow, it's on you. If your body, your finances, your mind, your soul are all misaligned, that's not bad luck. That's bad leadership. So take it. All of it. No more halfway. No more explanations. No more justifications. You are the architect, the engineer, the destroyer, and the rebuilder. You are the storm and the stillness, the fire and the hands that control it. This isn't about guilt. This isn't about shame. This is about power. Because once you own everything, no one can take anything from you. You become unshakable, unblameable, unstoppable. You stop outsourcing your results to the opinions of others. You stop reacting to circumstances like a puppet. You start making moves that are rooted in intention, not emotion. And yes, it's hard. It's lonely. It's dark. But what's the alternative? Living a life you never chose? Walking a path someone else handed you? dying with a story that wasn't even yours? Number. That's not the way. Not if you've made it this far. Not if there's even a flicker of war left in your bones. So own it. Every part. The pain, the weakness, the fear, the failure. And then, make one move. Just one. A bold, fearless, unreasonable move. Because once you've claimed the mess, you're finally free to create something worthy. Which leads us to the final truth in this chapter. One bold move can change everything, but only if you have the courage to make it. Sometimes, the line between who you are and who you could be is razor thin. Not a decade, not a lifetime, just one moment, one move. That's all it takes to shift the axis of your entire existence. But most people never make it. They come close. They think about it. They dream about it. They plan every detail. But when the time comes, they freeze. Why? Because boldness feels like death to the version of you that's been living small. Because one real move, the kind that can't be undone, requires sacrifice. The death of comfort. The death of who you used to be. The death of your attachment to everything safe and predictable. And that's the final test. Will you do the thing that can't be undone? Will you step past the point of no return? Because if you do, if you make that bold move, everything changes. Maybe not instantly, maybe not visibly, but beneath the surface, your identity fractures. The old self begins to burn, and the new self begins to rise. This is the moment warriors are born, not when they win, not when they're praised, but when they decide, I'd rather risk everything than rot in this halfway existence. You're one decision away from fire, one decision away from becoming someone your past self would never recognize. One move from breaking the cycle your bloodline never dared to challenge. You don't need 10 steps. You don't need the perfect plan. You need a spark, a leap, the kind of action that terrifies your comfort and electrifies your soul. Because here's what they don't tell you. The door to your next level doesn't open with keys. It opens with courage, and not quiet courage. Not poetic, passive, gentle courage. Loud courage. Violent courage. The kind that kicks the door off the hinges and says, I'm not asking. I'm becoming. One bold move can rewrite your future. Not because of what it achieves, but because of what it activates. It rewires your brain. It tells your mind, we don't live in fear anymore. It tells your spirit, we are alive again. It tells the world, this is who I am now, and I'm not going back. But let me be clear, this move will cost you. You will lose people. You will lose comfort. You will lose the illusion of safety. You will lose the ability to return to the old version of yourself. But that's the point. Because the next chapter demands a different beast. One who acts in defiance of doubt. One who carries scars, not shame. One who walks into rooms like they were carved for conquest, not permission. So if you've been standing on the edge, waiting for a sign, this is it. No more hesitation. No more second guessing. No more delay. Make the move. Quit the job. Start the business. Cut the toxic tie. Speak the truth. Hit publish. Buy the ticket. Show up uninvited. Say no. Say yes. Burn the fallback plan. Do the thing that scares you because it should scare you. It means it's real. And if you don't know where to begin, good. Because you're not supposed to have a map. You're supposed to have fire. This is not about reckless chaos. This is about deliberate ignition. You've done the thinking. You've done the waiting. You've carried the weight. Now it's time. Strike. Break the damn silence. Claim the next version of yourself with action no one sees coming. And when the dust settles, when the voices fade, when the smoke clears, you'll find yourself standing on new ground. Not because someone gave it to you, but because you took it. One bold move. That's all it takes to go from forgotten to feared, from waiting to becoming, from dreaming to dominating. So make the move. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. And when they ask where it all changed, you won't say, I had a plan. You'll say, I had the guts. Let this burn into your memory. It began in silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that rots men from the inside out. 1. The silence of waiting. That cold purgatory where most people die. Not from violence, but from hesitation. Waiting for a sign. Waiting for someone to save them. But the truth was clear. No one is coming. Then came the spark. 2. Initiative is the first strike. The realization that you either strike first, or life will strike for you. That hesitation is betrayal. That the first move isn't about certainty, it's about courage. But as we prepared to move, the ghosts rose up. 3. Excuses are the graveyard of dreams. Every justification was a shovel digging a deeper hole. We saw the cost of delay, of stories told to feel safe, and we burned those excuses at the altar of transformation. Because the only thing left to do was act. 4. Action is identity, not intentions, not beliefs, not potential. Only what you do, consistently, quietly, and with relentless force, determines who you are. Every action cast a vote, and we learned that the only way to rewrite the story was to move. But too many still asked for approval, still begged the world to say yes. So we cut that weakness at the root. 5. No permission required. You don't wait to be chosen. You claim the path. And when the world doesn't open the door, you kick it down. Because you were the green light you've been waiting for all along. But bold moves don't come without pain. 6. Failure is the compass. The teacher that doesn't flatter you. The voice that doesn't comfort. It breaks you to shape you. And the real ones? They fall and rise sharper than before. But you don't survive that fire by wanting it. You survive it by commanding yourself. 7. Discipline over desire. Because desire is soft. Desire changes with the wind. But discipline? Discipline is steel. It does what must be done, without applause, without feeling, without fail. And where was all this built? 8. Build before you're seen. In the shadows, in the silence, in the unrecorded grind. Because if you can't suffer unseen, you don't deserve the light. And once we had the foundation, we made a vow. 9. Ownership of everything. No more blame, no more pointing. Every result, every flaw, every delay, ours. Because we can't control what we don't own. And power only lives in the hands of those who claim the entire battlefield. And finally, 10. One bold move can change everything. All it takes is one. One unreasonable leap. One terrifying decision. One moment of defiance so pure, so final, that the old you can never come back. That's the formula. That's the path. No more waiting. No more asking. No more hiding. Now, we rise. To the returning GrimFace warriors, thank you. Your discipline, your loyalty, and your willingness to face the darkness head-on is what keeps this fire alive. To those new to the movement, this is your moment. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to begin. Subscribe to the mission, join the revolt, and never, ever go soft again. This is the GrimFace way, And we're just getting started.